The stars above were silent as Aaron's small shuttle drifted across the black sky. The machine was failing, its systems cracked from a storm of energy that had struck him while traveling near an unknown sector. He fought with the controls, but the shuttle shook and spiraled down toward the surface of a strange planet. The impact came hard, throwing him forward. Smoke filled the cabin, and he knew the vessel would never fly again. Aaron pushed open the hatch and stepped outside. The ground was rough, covered with reddish sand and jagged stone. Strange plants with silver leaves grew in scattered patches. The air was heavy but breathable. In the distance, cliffs rose high like broken towers. Aaron adjusted his gear and began to move away from the wreck. He needed water, food, and shelter before night came. Hours passed as he searched. The planet felt empty, but not lifeless. He saw marks in the soil, signs of travel, and broken branches that looked shaped by hands. Someone lived here. Aaron stayed alert, walking with quiet steps. When he reached a cluster of dry trees near a narrow stream, he stopped. There, by the water, was a figure. It was a woman. She was kneeling on the ground, her hands dipping into the stream as if she had not drunk for days. Her clothes were worn and torn. Her hair was long and tangled, falling over her face. When she sensed movement, she turned quickly, eyes wide with fear. Aaron raised both hands to show he meant no harm. "I am not your enemy," he said in a calm voice. The woman studied him carefully, as if unsure whether to trust or flee. Her thin arms shook as she tried to stand. Aaron noticed the scars on her wrists, the way she held herself as though expecting pain. He felt a wave of sympathy. "My name is Aaron," he continued. "I came from the sky. My ship crashed." She did not answer at first. Then, in a soft and tired voice, she whispered, "Myra." Aaron gave a small nod. "Myra. I mean no harm. I only seek water and a place to rest. Perhaps we can help each other." Her eyes lowered, but she did not run. Slowly, she stepped aside and allowed him near the stream. Aaron knelt and drank. The water was cool and fresh, washing away the dryness in his throat. He then pulled a small pack from his belt and took out a ration bar. It was simple human food, dry but filling. He broke it in half and offered a piece to Myra. At first she hesitated. Then hunger won over fear, and she reached out with shaking fingers. She ate slowly, as if each bite was a gift she had not expected. Aaron watched her carefully, speaking in a gentle tone. "You live here alone?" he asked. Myra nodded, though her eyes flicked nervously toward the forest beyond. "I hide," she whispered. "From who?" Aaron asked. Her lips tightened. She did not want to answer, but her silence told him enough. She was running from someone. He guessed it was not a small threat. Aaron decided not to press further. Instead, he tried to ease her worry. "I can build a fire. It will keep the night cold away." She looked uncertain, as if a fire might bring danger. But when the wind grew stronger and the shadows stretched long across the ground, she agreed with a small nod. Together, they gathered dry wood. Aaron showed her how he struck a spark with his survival tool. Soon, a small flame grew, bringing warmth and light. Myra sat close, her arms wrapped around herself. As the fire burned, Aaron studied her quietly. She was young but carried the weight of sorrow. Her eyes never rested for long. Each sound in the distance made her tense. She had lived in fear for too long. Aaron could see it in every movement she made. He wanted to ask her story, but he chose patience. Trust was not given in moments. It was earned over time. So he spoke of simple things: how his ship broke, how the stars looked from orbit, how humans told stories of the night sky. Myra listened quietly. Once, she even let a small smile touch her lips, though it faded quickly. When the fire settled into glowing embers, Aaron noticed Myra's head drooping. She fought against sleep, as if afraid that closing her eyes would bring punishment. Aaron pulled off his outer jacket and laid it beside her. "You should rest," he said softly. "I will watch. No harm will come." She looked at him with surprise, as though no one had spoken such words to her before. Slowly, carefully, she lay down, still watching him with half-open eyes. The firelight painted her face, showing both the lines of exhaustion and the soft strength that lived beneath. Aaron sat awake through the night, listening to the strange calls of the alien world. He kept his hand near his blade, but his eyes often returned to the woman sleeping by the fire. Who was she? What had she endured to live with such fear? He did not know yet, but he knew one thing with certainty. He could not leave her alone. By dawn, the sky turned pale with streaks of gold. Myra stirred and opened her eyes. She saw Aaron still sitting, still keeping watch. For the first time, her face showed something different. Not fear, not sorrow, but a quiet spark of trust. It was the beginning of a bond neither of them expected. The morning air was cool as light spread over the rocky land. Aaron stood by the stream, washing his hands and face while Myra sat near the fire. She looked more awake now, though her eyes still carried the shadow of worry. Aaron could tell she had spent too many days looking over her shoulder. When he returned, he offered her some dried fruit from his pack. She accepted with quiet gratitude. After a few minutes of silence, Aaron finally asked the question that had been resting on his mind since last night. "Myra," he said gently, "why do you hide here? Who are you running from?" Her hands tightened around the fruit. She lowered her gaze. For a long time she did not speak. Then, with a heavy breath, she whispered, "The king." Aaron frowned. "King?" She nodded slowly. "The alien king. He ruled the city of stone to the east. I was taken there. I was kept in his court until his death. After he was gone, I escaped. But his guards still search. They say I belong to the crown. They will not stop until they find me." Aaron felt a chill. She had not spoken every detail, but her tone revealed enough. She had been treated not as a person, but as property. He clenched his fists. "You do not belong to anyone," Aaron said firmly. "Not to a king, not to his guards. You are free." Myra gave him a faint, uncertain look. Her lips trembled as if she wanted to believe him but could not. Years of fear were not broken with one sentence. Still, she seemed touched by the strength in his words. Aaron studied the horizon. If guards were truly searching for her, this place was not safe. The smoke from their small fire might already have drawn attention. He turned back to her. "We must leave here," he said. "They may come. I will not let them take you." Her eyes widened. "You would help me." "I will," Aaron said simply. "But I need you to guide me. You know this land better than I do." Myra hesitated, but then nodded. For the first time, she did not look like she was facing danger alone. They packed what little they had and set out along the stream, moving west toward higher ground. The land grew wild with twisted trees and tall grasses. Strange birds circled overhead, their wings sharp like blades. Aaron moved with caution, scanning the terrain, while Myra walked close behind him. As they traveled, she began to speak in short fragments. She told him about the city of stone, its towers carved from black rock, its halls echoing with alien voices. She told him how she had been brought there when she was very young, chosen without care for her will. She spoke of endless days of silence, of being commanded, never free to decide her own path. Aaron listened carefully, his anger rising at the thought of such cruelty. He did not press her for details, letting her share only what she wished. The more she spoke, the more he saw her courage. She had endured, she had escaped, and she was still standing. That alone showed strength greater than most. By midday, the sun burned hot overhead. They rested beneath a rock ledge, sharing the last of Aaron's water. He studied Myra's face, noticing how her eyes seemed brighter now than when he first saw her. She still carried fear, but there was something new, hope, faint but present. Their rest was cut short by the sound of movement in the distance. Heavy steps. Voices speaking in a guttural tongue. Myra stiffened. "The guards," she whispered. Aaron pressed his hand against the rock, listening. The voices grew louder. He signaled for Myra to follow him, and they moved quietly along the ledge, keeping low. Through the trees, they saw 3 alien hunters, tall and armored, scanning the ground with long staffs that glowed at the tips. Myra trembled, but Aaron touched her arm gently. "Stay close," he whispered. They slipped away, moving between bushes and stones, careful not to break a branch or stir the leaves. For a moment it seemed they had escaped, but then one of the hunters paused and turned their way. The alien's eyes glowed faintly as it raised its staff. "Run," Aaron whispered. Together they sprinted across the uneven ground. Shouts erupted behind them. The hunters gave chase. Bright beams of light shot past, striking trees and sending sparks into the air. Myra stumbled, but Aaron caught her arm and pulled her forward. They raced through the forest until they reached a wide river. The water rushed fast, carrying foam and broken branches. Myra shook her head. "It is too strong." Aaron looked behind them. The hunters were closing in. He grabbed Myra's hand firmly. "Trust me." Without another word, he leapt into the river, pulling her with him. The current seized them, dragging them downstream. Cold water roared in their ears. Myra clung to him desperately, but Aaron kept his grip strong. He kicked against the pull, guiding them toward the far bank. After a struggle that felt endless, they reached the edge and crawled onto the shore, gasping for breath. From across the river, the hunters appeared, shouting in anger. They did not dare cross the raging waters. Aaron and Myra lay hidden in the tall grass until the voices faded into the distance. When at last they rose, Myra looked at him with wide eyes. "You saved me," she whispered. Aaron gave a small smile, though he was weary. "We saved each other." The rest of the day they traveled deeper into the wild lands, away from the river. Myra began to guide him more confidently, pointing out safe paths and warning of places where hunters often passed. The bond between them grew stronger with every step. As night fell, they found a cave hidden in the side of a hill. Aaron built another small fire, careful to keep the smoke low. Myra sat near him, her eyes fixed on the flame. After a long silence, she spoke. "All my life, I thought I would always belong to someone else. That I would never be free. But you see me as different." Aaron looked at her firmly. "Because you are different." You are a person with a voice, with choice. No king can take that from you. Her eyes shone in the firelight. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe his words. That night, while the wind howled outside the cave, Myra slept without fear. Aaron stayed awake, his mind filled with the image of her finding hope again. He knew the road ahead would be dangerous. The king's hunters would not give up easily. But he also knew he could never abandon her. He had chosen to stand with her, no matter what came. And that choice would change both their lives forever. The sun rose bright and sharp, burning across the wide sky of the alien world. Aaron and Myra stepped out of the cave after a night of uneasy rest. Aaron checked the land ahead with careful eyes. The path they had taken yesterday had hidden them for a time, but he knew the hunters would not give up. They had seen Myra, and they would keep searching until they caught her again. Myra walked close to him, her steps soft, her eyes scanning every shadow. Though her fear was still there, she was no longer moving in silence only. She spoke in short sentences, guiding him toward a safer trail. She had lived long under the rule of the alien king, but she knew the lands around his city better than many of his guards. They walked until noon, when the heat pressed down heavy. The path took them through thick woods where twisted roots climbed high above the ground. Aaron paused and leaned against a tree. He could hear distant cries carried by the wind. They were not the cries of birds. They were voices. Alien voices. They are close, Myra whispered. Aaron's jaw tightened. He pulled her gently by the arm and led her deeper into the woods. They tried to move quickly, but every branch seemed to crack too loud, every leaf too sharp underfoot. The sound of pursuit grew louder. Soon, figures appeared behind them. The alien hunters had found the trail. Their armor shone faintly in the sunlight, and their staffs burned with glowing tips. The hunters spread out, moving like wolves. "Run," Aaron said. They ran through the trees, weaving between roots and rocks. The hunters shouted, their guttural voices echoing. Beams of light struck the ground, leaving black scars on the earth. Myra's breath came fast, but she did not stop. Aaron stayed close to her side, his eyes searching for any path that might save them. The forest opened into a stretch of tall grass. Aaron pulled Myra down, crawling low. The grass hid them for a moment, but the hunters were clever. One of them released a sphere that floated above the field, sending out pulses of red light. Wherever the light touched, the grass bent and shifted. "They will see us," Myra whispered. Aaron thought quickly. He grabbed a stone from the ground and threw it far to the left. The sphere drifted after the sound. The hunters followed, shouting. Aaron pulled Myra the other way, staying low until they reached the edge of the grass. For a brief moment, it seemed they were safe, but then one hunter broke off from the others. He turned, scanning the land with sharp eyes. His gaze locked on Myra. He raised his staff and fired. The beam missed by inches, striking a tree and setting it aflame. Myra stumbled, but Aaron caught her and pulled her behind a rock. He drew his blade, a simple human weapon made of steel. Against alien armor it was not much, but he had no choice. The hunter came closer, stepping heavy across the ground. Aaron waited until the alien moved past the rock. Then he leapt out, striking with all his strength. The blade cut across the hunter's arm. The alien roared in anger, swinging its staff, but Aaron ducked and struck again. Myra, though afraid, picked up a fallen branch and swung it at the hunter's leg. The alien stumbled, giving Aaron the chance to drive his blade deeper. With a final cry, the hunter fell to the ground. Aaron breathed hard, pulling Myra close. "We must go before the others return." They fled once more, moving through hills and stones. Behind them, the cries of the other hunters rose in fury. The chase was far from over. By evening, they reached a river valley filled with shadows. The water here was calmer than the raging river they had crossed before. Myra bent to drink, but Aaron kept watch. He could see lights far in the distance, torches carried by the hunters. "They will not stop," Myra said softly. "They will follow until I am caught." "Then we will not let them catch us," Aaron answered. Myra looked at him, her eyes filled with doubt but also something stronger. Trust. She had lived so long believing she was powerless, yet here was someone who refused to let her be taken again. They found a narrow cave along the valley wall and hid there as night fell. Aaron built no fire this time, not wanting to draw attention. They sat in the dark, listening to the distant sounds of searchers. For a while they said nothing. Then Myra spoke in a low voice. "When I was in the city of stone, I thought no one would ever see me as more than a servant. I was told I had no worth beyond what the king wanted. But you fight for me, though you do not know me." Aaron turned to her, his voice steady. "I know enough. I see your strength. You have lived through pain and still stand. That is worth more than anything." Myra's eyes softened. She lowered her head, hiding a small tear that slipped free. She had never heard words like that before. The night passed slowly. At times the hunters came close, their lights moving along the river. But the cave kept them hidden. Aaron stayed awake, blade in hand, ready for any threat. Myra leaned against the stone wall, her breathing slow and steady. When dawn came, they left the cave and moved again. The chase continued, but something had changed. Myra no longer moved only with fear. She moved with a growing strength, a belief that perhaps she could be more than a shadow running from the past. Aaron saw it too. And he knew that as long as he stood by her, they would keep moving forward. The hunters would chase them, but together they would fight. The journey was only beginning. The road ahead stretched wide as Aaron and Myra left the valley behind. The forest thinned into rolling plains, where tall grass waved like an endless sea. The sun shone bright, and for a moment the land looked peaceful, though Aaron never let his guard down. He knew the hunters could still be behind them, searching every path and river. Myra walked close beside him. She was quieter than usual, but her eyes seemed different. There was less of the constant fear that had once filled her face. Instead, there was a growing light in her gaze, something close to hope. As they traveled, Myra began to ask small questions about Aaron. She wanted to know where he came from, what his home was like, and why he had come to this part of space. Aaron answered patiently, though his voice carried a trace of sorrow when he spoke of Earth. "My world is far from here," he explained. "Blue skies, green fields, wide oceans. Many years I worked among stars as a traveler. But now my ship is broken. I do not know if I can ever return." Myra listened with quiet wonder. She tried to picture oceans and skies of blue. For so long her life had been only stone walls, dark halls, and endless commands. The thought of open seas felt like a dream. She touched the grass beside her and whispered, "Perhaps this is how freedom feels." Aaron gave her a gentle look. "Yes. Freedom feels like open land, and the choice to walk where you wish." They reached a small ridge, and from its top they saw smoke rising in the distance. Aaron's hand moved to the hilt of his blade, but Myra's eyes widened with recognition. That is no hunting fire, she said. It is a human outpost. Aaron's heart lifted. Humans live here. She nodded. I have heard of it. A hidden place where humans trade and rest. Few aliens know of it. If we reach there, we may be safe for a time. The thought of meeting his own kind again gave Aaron strength. They quickened their pace, moving toward the smoke. By evening, they reached the edge of the outpost. It was a small settlement, hidden among cliffs and trees. Metal walls circled the camp, and guards with rifles stood at the gates. When Aaron approached, they raised their weapons, suspicious. But when he called out in his own tongue, their eyes filled with surprise. A human traveler, one guard said. We have not seen your kind for months. Enter, stranger. You are welcome here. Inside, the outpost was simple but alive. Fires burned in safe pits, children played near the houses, and traders moved with goods in their arms. Myra's steps slowed, her eyes wide with awe. She had not seen such open life in years. Aaron introduced her to the outpost leader, a tall woman named Lyra. He explained that Myra had escaped from the alien king and was hunted still. Lyra listened with careful eyes. She will be safe here for a time, Lyra said at last. But the aliens are cruel. If they learn she is here, they may bring war upon us. Aaron's voice was firm. Then we will stand against them. Myra is free. No one owns her. Lyra studied him, then nodded slowly. You are brave, traveler. Perhaps too brave. But your words hold truth. Very well. She may stay. That night, for the first time in years, Myra sat among people who did not command her. She shared food at a long table, listening to laughter and stories. At first she was shy, speaking little, but Aaron encouraged her gently. Slowly, she began to smile. When the meal ended, Aaron walked with her near the firelight. She looked at him with a mixture of wonder and disbelief. All this time I thought I would never live free, she said softly. But now I sit among people who treat me as one of them. And you, Aaron, you are the reason. Aaron shook his head. You found your own strength. I only stood beside you. Myra's eyes shone. Still, you chose to stand. That choice means more than you know. The days that followed brought new life for Myra. She learned small tasks in the outpost, carrying water, cooking food, even joining children in simple games. She laughed for the first time in many years. Aaron watched her, his heart warming with pride. She was no longer only a survivor. She was living again. But peace was not without shadow. One evening, as the sun dipped low, scouts returned to the outpost with grim news. Alien patrols had been seen near the valley, closer than before. Lyra called a council. The hunters search this land, she warned. They seek the escaped woman. If they discover she is here, they will demand we return her. If we refuse, they may attack. Some in the outpost looked at Myra with worry. Others looked at Aaron with doubt. But Aaron stood tall, his voice strong. No human should surrender another to slavery. If they come, we will resist. His words stirred the people. Some nodded in agreement. Myra listened, her heart racing. Never before had anyone spoken so fiercely for her. Later that night, she sat by the fire with Aaron. The glow lit his face, showing the calm strength in his eyes. Why do you fight for me so? She asked in a whisper. You could leave. You could find your own way home. Why risk your life for mine? Aaron looked at her for a long moment before speaking. Because every life has worth. And because I cannot watch someone lose freedom when I have the power to help. I will not turn away. Myra lowered her gaze, touched deeply. A quiet warmth filled her chest, something she had not felt in years. It was more than safety, more than gratitude. It was trust. As the night grew quiet, Myra lay down in her small shelter. For the first time, she did not fear sleep. She knew Aaron would be near, watching, protecting. And as she drifted into dreams, she realized something she never thought possible. She was no longer alone. The bond between them had grown stronger, like a fire that could not be put out. The days in the human outpost passed with a rare calm. Myra began to live as though she had always belonged there. She carried water with the women, she prepared food with gentle hands, and she listened to the laughter of children with a smile that grew more real each day. For Aaron, seeing her like this was a reward greater than any treasure. She was no longer the broken figure he had met at the stream. She was healing. Yet peace on this world was fragile. One morning, scouts returned to the outpost, their faces pale with worry. The council was called to the center square, and Aaron and Myra stood among them. The scout leader raised his hand to silence the crowd. "We have seen movement on the eastern ridge," he said. "Alien banners. The hunters search in greater numbers. They march with weapons ready. It is clear who they seek." The people murmured uneasily. Their eyes turned toward Myra. She lowered her head, shame and fear pressing against her heart. Another scout spoke. "They say the woman is property of the crown. They demand her return. If we refuse, they will bring fire and death to our walls." The outpost fell silent. The leader, Lyra, looked at the crowd. "We must decide. Do we surrender her and save ourselves, or do we defy the aliens and risk destruction?" Myra felt her knees weaken. She wanted to speak, to beg them not to suffer because of her, but words would not come. Then Aaron stepped forward. His voice cut through the silence. "No one here is property. Myra is free. If we surrender her, we tell the aliens that humans will always bend to chains. If we stand for her, we stand for ourselves. We are not slaves. We are not weak. We will not give her back." His words carried strength, and many heads nodded. But not all agreed. A man in the crowd spoke sharply. "You are new here, traveler. You bring danger to us with your bold words. If we defy the aliens, we may all die. Why should we risk everything for one woman?" Aaron's gaze burned with fire. "Because if we give her up, then what are we? We may live another day, but we will live as cowards. And cowards lose more than life. They lose their spirit." The man fell silent, but the tension in the air remained heavy. Lyra raised her hand. "We must prepare. The aliens may strike soon. If they come, we will defend ourselves. This council is ended." The crowd broke apart, some with determination, others with doubt. Myra stood frozen, torn between gratitude and guilt. When the square emptied, she turned to Aaron. "You should not have spoken for me," she whispered. "Now they are in greater danger because of me. I should leave. I should run, so the aliens will follow only me." Aaron shook his head. "If you run, they will still find you. And you will face them alone. Here, you have people who will fight with you. Together we are stronger." "But why?" Myra asked, her eyes wet. "Why do you care so much?" I am only one woman who has already lost everything. Aaron stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. You are not lost. You are alive, and your life has worth. Do not let them take that from you again. I will not let them. Myra felt her heart tremble. She had never known such words, never known someone who would stand for her when it brought danger to him as well. The outpost soon filled with preparation. Walls were strengthened, weapons sharpened, and scouts sent out in every direction. Fires were kept low to avoid drawing eyes in the night. The people worked with tense faces but steady hands. Myra joined them, carrying supplies and filling water jars. She wanted to show she was not only a burden. She wanted to stand beside them, not behind them. One evening, Aaron found her near the water pit, lifting heavy jars until her arms shook. He took one from her hands and set it down. You do not have to do all this alone, he said. I must, she replied. I want them to see I am not helpless. That I am not only a reason for war. I want them to see I can stand. Aaron smiled faintly. Then stand with me when the time comes. Her eyes met his, and for the first time, she nodded without hesitation. That night, as the stars spread across the sky, the sound of drums echoed from the hills. The aliens had come. The outpost gathered at the walls, torches lit, and weapons ready. Myra stood beside Aaron, her hands trembling, but she did not step back. The hunters marched into view, their tall figures dark against the flames they carried. At their head rode a captain, his armor black, his staff glowing with cruel power. He raised his voice, harsh and commanding. People of the outpost. You hold what belongs to the crown. Give her to us, and we will leave you in peace. Refuse, and we will burn your homes to ash. The crowd stirred. All eyes turned to Lyra, who stood on the wall. She glanced at Myra, then at Aaron, and finally raised her voice. This woman belongs to no crown. She is free, and she will not be returned. The aliens roared in anger. The captain raised his staff high. Then your outpost will fall. The hunters struck their drums again, the sound rolling like thunder. Aaron gripped his blade, his eyes fixed on the enemy. Myra stood close, her fear real but her spirit unbroken. She had chosen to stay. She had chosen to fight. The outpost braced for battle, knowing the storm was about to break. And in that moment, trust between Aaron and Myra was no longer just a fragile bond. It was a fire burning bright, strong enough to carry them through the darkness ahead. The night air shook with the sound of alien drums. The ground beneath the outpost trembled as if the earth itself feared what was coming. On the walls, humans stood with weapons ready, their faces lit by the flicker of torches. Aaron stood tall among them, his blade gleaming faintly. Beside him, Myra clutched a spear given by the guards. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were steady. From the hills, the hunters marched forward. Their armor shone dark under the moon, and their staffs pulsed with cruel light. At their head, the alien captain raised his staff, pointing it toward the outpost gates. His voice carried like thunder. This is your last chance. Give her to us, or all of you will burn. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Lyra, the leader of the outpost, lifted her rifle and shouted back, "She is free. She will not be taken." The aliens roared in fury, and the battle began. Arrows and beams of light filled the sky. The first wave of hunters charged the walls, their staffs firing blasts that shook the wood and stone. Humans answered with rifles and bows, arrows tipped with steel that pierced alien flesh. The night became fire and chaos. Aaron fought at the gate, his blade flashing with each strike. A hunter leapt over the wall, staff raised, but Aaron met him with a fierce slash. Sparks flew as steel clashed against alien metal. Aaron pressed forward, his strength unyielding, until the hunter fell. Myra stood close behind him. At first fear nearly froze her, but when another hunter climbed the wall near her, she lifted her spear with both hands. She thrust forward with all her strength, striking the alien in the chest. The creature roared and fell back into the darkness. Her heart pounded, but she stood taller. She was no longer only hiding. She was fighting. The battle raged through the night. Hunters broke through the outer walls, but humans met them with shields and blades. The ground shook with each explosion, yet the defenders refused to yield. For every hunter that fell, two more pressed forward, their voices rising in fury. Aaron fought without rest. His arms ached, his breath came hard, but he would not stop. Each time he looked at Myra and saw her still standing, his strength renewed. She fought beside him, her eyes fierce. She no longer looked like the broken woman he had found at the stream. She looked like a warrior, burning with courage. The alien captain himself stepped into the fight. He towered above the others, his staff blazing with power. With one strike, he shattered a section of the wall, sending humans tumbling. The defenders wavered, fear rising. Aaron stepped forward to meet him. Their eyes locked, human against alien, courage against cruelty. The captain swung his staff with deadly force, but Aaron dodged, striking with his blade. Sparks flew as steel met glowing metal. The clash echoed across the battlefield. Myra saw Aaron struggling against the captain's strength. She knew she could not stand aside. She remembered every moment of pain she had suffered in the alien king's court, every day she had lived without freedom. Rage and strength filled her heart. She grabbed a torch from the wall and hurled it at the captain's feet. Fire spread across the ground, forcing him to step back. "Now, Aaron," she cried. Aaron struck with all his strength, driving his blade into the captain's armor. The alien roared in pain, swinging wildly. Aaron rolled aside as the staff struck the earth, sending sparks into the sky. With a final slash, Aaron cut across the captain's chest. The towering figure staggered and fell, his staff shattering as it struck the ground. The hunters saw their leader fall. Their cries wavered, and fear spread among them. The humans, seeing victory within reach, shouted and pressed forward. The hunters broke ranks, retreating into the darkness of the hills. The drums faded into silence. The outpost stood in ruins, walls broken and ground scorched, but it still stood. The humans, bloodied but alive, raised their voices in triumph. The hunters were gone. Myra dropped her spear, her hands shaking from both fear and triumph. She looked around at the defenders, at the firelit ruins, and finally at Aaron. He stood breathing hard, his blade red with battle, his face weary but strong. She walked to him, her eyes full of gratitude. "You fought for me," she whispered. Aaron shook his head. "We fought for each other. You stood as strong as any of us. This victory is yours as much as mine." Her eyes shone with tears, not of sorrow but of pride. For the first time in her life, she felt like more than a shadow. She had stood and fought for her freedom. The outpost gathered around the fallen fire. Lyra spoke to the people. "Tonight we proved that humans will not bow to chains. We stood together and we won. Let this night be remembered as the night we showed the aliens our spirit cannot be broken." Cheers rose, though weary and faint. The people had suffered, but their courage burned brighter than their pain. When the fires burned low, Aaron and Myra sat apart from the others. The sky above was wide and filled with stars. Myra looked at the stars with a quiet smile. "All my life I thought freedom was a dream I could never touch," she said softly. "But tonight I felt it. I chose to fight. I chose to stand." Aaron looked at her with deep respect. "And you will never lose that choice again. Not while I stand beside you." She turned to him, her eyes warm. In the glow of the embers, their bond was clear, forged in fire and battle. They were no longer only survivors. They were partners, bound by trust and courage. The night that had begun with fear had ended with victory. But both knew the road ahead was not yet done. The aliens would not forget this defeat. They would return with greater numbers. Still, neither Aaron nor Myra felt fear as they looked to the horizon. Whatever storm came next, they would face it together. The outpost was quiet after the battle. Smoke drifted into the sky, carrying the scent of fire and victory. The people moved slowly among the ruins, tending to wounds, rebuilding broken walls, and giving comfort to those who had lost loved ones. Even in sorrow, there was pride. They had stood against the hunters and lived. Aaron and Myra worked with the others. Aaron carried timber to repair the gates, while Myra cleaned the wounds of the injured. Her hands, once used only in servitude, now moved with care and purpose. When she met the eyes of those she helped, they smiled at her with gratitude. She was no longer seen as a burden. She was one of them. That evening, the council gathered in the center square. Torches glowed around them as the people listened. Lyra, their leader, stood tall, her voice steady despite the exhaustion on her face. "We fought bravely," she said. "But we must be ready for what comes next. The hunters will return. Their pride will not allow this defeat to pass. We must grow stronger. We must prepare." Murmurs of agreement spread through the crowd. But then Lyra turned her gaze to Myra. "Yet we also see what this woman has brought us. She has reminded us that freedom is worth any cost. She did not run. She stood and fought. For that, she has earned her place among us." Myra felt her chest tighten. She bowed her head, her voice soft but clear. "I have been a slave all my life. I did not know what it meant to live as free until you gave me shelter. I will not forget what you have done. This is my home now, and I will stand for it." The crowd nodded, some even cheering. In that moment, Myra felt truly accepted. Later that night, when the council meeting was done, Myra and Aaron walked beyond the walls to a small hill where the stars stretched wide above them. The air was cool, and the world felt quiet at last. Myra looked at the sky, her voice thoughtful. "When I was taken to the alien court, I often looked at the stars and wondered if freedom lived somewhere among them. I thought I would never touch it. But now I see freedom is not found in the stars. It is here, with the people who fight for it." Aaron smiled faintly. "Freedom is not given. It is taken, held, and protected. And you have taken it with your own hands." She turned to him. "I could not have done it without you." Aaron shook his head. "You had the strength all along. I only helped you see it." There was a silence between them, soft and full. Myra's eyes glimmered in the starlight. "You risked everything for me," she whispered. "Why?" Aaron's gaze did not waver. "Because I saw your worth when you could not. And because somewhere along the way, I realized I could not imagine life without you." Myra's breath caught. Her heart, once heavy with chains, felt light. She stepped closer, her voice trembling with honesty. I never thought love could be mine. Yet here, in this place, with you, I feel it for the first time. They stood together beneath the stars, two souls who had fought through fire and fear to find one another. Aaron took her hand gently, and she did not pull away. In the days that followed, the outpost rebuilt. The walls grew stronger, the people trained harder, and hope began to spread where once there had only been fear. Myra became a symbol of that hope. She taught the children how to stand tall, reminding them that even the weakest can find strength when they refuse to bow. She worked beside the women, and they welcomed her laughter as if it had always been there. Aaron trained the young men in the art of combat, but he often glanced toward Myra, knowing her courage was a lesson even greater than his blade. Together, they gave the outpost something it had never known before, unity built not from fear, but from love and trust. One evening, a gathering was called. The people wished to celebrate their survival, to honor their strength. A fire was lit in the square, and music rose from simple drums and flutes. Children danced, women sang, and men clapped in rhythm. For the first time since the battle, joy filled the air. Myra wore a simple white dress offered by one of the women. She stepped into the circle with Aaron at her side. The people cheered for them, not as strangers, but as part of the family they had chosen. It was then that Aaron spoke, his voice carrying across the firelight. We fought together, and we won. But more than that, we learned what it means to lie free. I stand here not only as a fighter of this outpost, but as a man who has found his heart. He turned to Myra, his expression steady and open. I once walked this world alone, but not anymore. I ask you, Myra, will you walk it with me? Will you be my partner in life, as you have been in battle? The crowd fell silent, waiting. Myra's eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow but of joy. She had been a slave, then a stranger, then a fighter. Now, for the first time, she was given a choice. Yes, she said softly, but her voice carried strong. Yes, I will. The outpost erupted in cheers. The music rose again, louder, brighter. The fire leapt high, as if the stars themselves celebrated. Aaron and Myra stood together, hand in hand, no longer bound by past pain but lifted by a new future. That night, as the firelight faded and the stars glowed above, Myra whispered to Aaron, I was once nothing but a shadow. But you helped me find my light. Aaron smiled, pulling her close. And now that light will never be taken from you. The hunters would return one day, stronger and fiercer. But the outpost was ready. More than walls and weapons, they had something the aliens could never understand, the unbroken will of humans, and the bond of two hearts that had found each other in the darkest of places. Together, Aaron and Myra would face whatever storms lay ahead. For love had given them freedom, and freedom had given them strength. And so, their story did not end with chains or sorrow, but with hope. The widowed concubine was no longer a slave, and the wanderer was no longer alone. They had found in each other the one truth that could not be destroyed. That humans, no matter the chains or battles, could always rise again.